listening to the EPT Works Listen, Love, Give podcast. Hi, I'm Dr. Annette Cargioli, the Forgiveness Doctor. I'm here to help you create phenomenal health, happiness, and new life with energy, intuition, and forgiveness. EPT is short for Emotional Polarity Technique, an innovative, holistic emotional therapy that will change your life for good. You can subscribe to this podcast, get free EPT training at eptworks.com, and like us on Facebook. ADD stands for Attention Deficit Disorder. ADHD stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. And a lot of you know these disorders, and chances are you know someone who has one of these diagnoses. In today's podcast, you will learn what are the most commonly used drugs for ADD, ADHD. You will also learn facts about prescribed ADHD drugs, including known withdrawal symptoms. I'm also going to review what leading experts have to say about whether or not these drugs really help with ADHD. Finally, I'll be talking about how environmental influences can create or contribute to attention deficit disorder and how EPT can help. As always, I will throw in some forgiveness statements that you can use to help yourself or someone else who has ADD. If you hang in there until the end, you will also learn about an essential oil that can balance a person with ADD. So let's get started. It's important for me to tell you that whenever I speak about psychiatric drugs, I'm usually referencing one of my favorite docs, Dr. Peter Bregenz. Dr. Bregenz is a psychiatrist who has written some of the best books out there on the facts and myths of all kinds of psychiatric drugs. As one of the top experts in his field, Dr. Bregenz is often called to testify in court cases involving these types of drugs. Because of his involvement in legal cases, he has been privy to some information that the drug company is not required to make public. So when you read his books, a lot of times you are hearing information that you wouldn't be able to just find anywhere, because a lot of the information about the drugs, psychiatric drugs, or any drugs that drug companies produce, they're not required to make public until there's some kind of a lawsuit. One of the reasons I admire Dr. Bregenz is his honesty to tell the truth about the limitations of these drugs. In fact, the damaging effects psychiatric drugs have on people. Please go find him on Facebook, Dr. Peter Bregenz, and like him. You may also want to check out his webpage, bregenz.com, BREGGIN.com, and buy some of his books. Today, I'll specifically be talking about the stimulant drugs that are used to treat ADHD. The facts I'm presenting come from Dr. Peter Bregenz's book, The Ritalin Fact Book, What Your Doctor Won't Tell You About ADHD and Stimulant Drugs. Some of you may or may not know the commonly used drugs for ADHD. They are Adderall, Dexedrine, Ritalin, Focalin, Concerta, Strattera, Vyvanse, and there may be some more. These drugs are all either amphetamine or amphetamine-like. They are stimulants, or also known as uppers or speed on the street. They all share common effects and hazards. All are similar to cocaine in their properties. They can cause cardiovascular dysfunction, growth suppression, and tics. They can cause psychiatric side effects such as agitation, aggression, psychosis, mania, depression, and OCD. OCD is obsessive compulsive disorder. One of the reasons it causes OCD is because these drugs force the child to focus on one thing that they don't normally focus on. And so they can then kind of have an OCD effect where they're only going to eat pizza and ham, or they only wear black clothing. That type of effect can happen as a side effect from these drugs. Stimulant drugs can also cause withdrawal symptoms for days, weeks, or even longer after stopping them. Tics and spasms caused by the drug may temporarily worsen during withdrawal period after the drugs are reduced or stopped. So if the child has side effects such as spasms or unwanted tics, once you pull them off the drug, those spasms and those tics a lot of times will get worse as a side effect. Now, when a child's behavior worsens, instead of stopping the drug, misinformed doctors will often increase the dosage or add another drug, ultimately worsening the child's condition. All stimulants, including Ritalin, Adderall, Focalin, and Concerta, work by putting a governor on the child's brain, literally suppressing the brain's ability to generate spontaneous mental life and behavior. Did you get that? They work by putting a governor on the child's brain, literally suppressing the brain's ability to generate spontaneous mental life and behavior. Stimulants disrupt the connections in the highest developmental regions of the brain, including the frontal lobes, which are the seat of the most advanced behaviors of any species. All psychoactive drugs disrupt normal brain function. They do not correct biochemical imbalances. More than 20% of children on stimulants will become depressed. In fact, this is so commonly known, I have actually had clients who come in with a child on Ritalin or Adderall or Concerta, and at the same time they were given the stimulant, the doctors went ahead and put them on Prozac or an antidepressant because, as he might have told the parent, a lot of times they get depressed on the stimulant, so we just go ahead and put them on an antidepressant. Now, if a doctor doesn't do that right out of the chute, then it may be later when the parent goes in and says, he's just not the same, he seems depressed. The doctor will then say, oh, instead of saying, well, maybe it's the Ritalin, the doctor will just say, well, now we'll add the antidepressant. Very common practice. In Dr. Peter Bregenz's book, the Ritalin Fact Book, Peter Bregenz states, in my clinical experience, many children who take these drugs for several years remain more immature and less able to manage on their own. The warning section of the 2002 Ritalin label states, clinical experience suggests that in psychotic children, administration of Ritalin may exacerbate symptoms of behavior disturbance and thought disorder. Under adverse reactions, the label for both Adderall XR and Ritalin give recognition to the danger of making children and adults psychotic. The Ritalin label states, toxic psychosis has been reported. The Adderall XR label notes, psychotic episodes reported at recommended doses, not the wrong dose, but the recommended dose. These stimulants can not only exacerbate behavioral disturbances and psychosis, they can cause them at recommended doses. Withdrawal symptoms are very common even after one dose of a stimulant drug. When withdrawal occurs soon after stopping the drug and involves a worsening of the original symptoms, in other words, I've got this kid that's bouncing off the walls. I put him on Ritalin and he's better. I take him off Ritalin and he's like double bouncing off the walls. That's called a rebound. Scientific studies have shown that most children have rebound symptoms starting with their very first dose of a stimulant. A study conducted at the National Institute of Mental Health found a marked behavioral rebound was observed by parents and teachers starting approximately 5 hours after medication had been given. This consisted of excitability, talkativeness, and, for 3 of the children in the study, apparent euphoria. Often, the withdrawal reaction is similar to the child's original problems, but worse. Now, what that looks like when you're working with a parent, it's scary for a parent who they take their child off of Ritalin because they're thinking, I don't want my child on this drug. I see the dangers. But then they see their child's behavior just go off the chart. And the first thought they have is, my kid really does need this drug. this is going to help my child's life. Look at how bad he is when I take the drug away. I'm remembering it's terrible without this drug. That's what goes through their mind. And I've actually had clients who will say that to me. But you don't understand, when he goes off the drug, I mean, he just misses one dose and he's a nutcase. I mean, he just loses it. My kid clearly has a problem that this drug is addressing. So the parents aren't even aware that there is withdrawal with these drugs. This kid didn't get his fix, and now he's going to go into withdrawal, which is a common thing with many drugs. It's just that there's really not a lot of talk about this with these stimulants that are given to kids with ADD and ADHD. But it's something that is a fact, it's a known fact, and people need to be aware of that. So now, with so many children taking these drugs, the question becomes, do stimulants really help with ADHD? Here's some of the research answering this question. A review in the American Psychiatric Press Textbook of Psychiatry concluded, stimulants do not produce lasting improvements in aggressivity, conduct disorder, criminality, education achievement, job functioning, marital relationships, or long-term adjustment. Similarly, one National Institute of Mental Health study concluded that the long-term efficacy of stimulant medication has not been demonstrated in any domain of child function. And another study confirmed there is no long-term advantage to taking stimulants. A very thorough review sponsored by the U.S. Department of Education came to the conclusions that would startle most people who've been exposed to pro-drug advocacy. The following is taken verbatim from that report. Long-term beneficial effects have not been verified by the research. Stimulant medication may improve learning in some cases, but impair learning in others. Teachers and parents should not expect significant improved reading or athletic skills, positive social skills, or learning of new concepts. Teachers and parents should not expect long-term improvement in academic achievement or reduced antisocial behavior. In Gabor Mate's book, Scattered, Gabor takes a deeper look at the environmental issues that cause ADHD. Dr. Mate describes ADHD behavior as an environmental adaptation where a child has trained himself to look away because it's too traumatic or sad to look at his life or to pay attention to what's happening in his world. Show me an attention deficit kid and I'll show you a very sad child who needs attention. Attention deficit is the perfect description, because the child is without attention and therefore needs attention. Using emotional polarity technique, you can determine exactly what the child is looking away from. Could be the loss of his family in divorce. He could be looking away from the loss of a parent in divorce. Could be the abuse he sees dad putting toward mom. Could be a previous medical trauma where he was forced to have surgery or ongoing medical care that was really difficult. Could be the loss of a home he loved. With EPT, you ask the body, is there an earlier time when you had to stop paying attention or look away? The body's going to respond. A weak muscle will be, yes, there was an earlier time. Find the original memory in the form of a statement. At age 2, I felt my mom's crying because dad was yelling at her. This can often be an emotional trauma memory where some significant threat to the family peace is threatened. Find the original memory, fix it, and forgive it. Here's some forgiveness statements to help you get the idea of how this works. I forgive myself for believing I can't pay attention without feeling the trauma at age 2 when dad was yelling at my mom. I forgive myself for believing I have to look away so I won't be hurt. I forgive myself for believing paying attention is too stressful for me. I forgive my mom for crying and not being there for me when dad yelled. I forgive myself for believing I can't pay attention without feeling the trauma at age 2 when Dad was yelling at my mom. I forgive myself for believing when I pay attention, no one is there for me, and I'm alone. I forgive myself for believing I have to look away so I won't be hurt. I forgive myself for believing paying attention is way too stressful for me because I feel all the abandonment of no one being there for me when this trauma is happening. I forgive myself for believing it's easier to just check out than to feel all that abandonment and loss and trauma and hurt. I forgive Dad for terrifying me so that I was afraid Mom would die or I would. I forgive myself for believing I can keep from being all alone by looking away, checking out, distracting myself. I forgive myself for connecting to distraction because of a loss of connection I felt when I pay attention and no one is available to me. I just want to say right here that this is a pervasive cultural problem. No one is here for the children. When they avoid the pain of abandonment by attention distraction, we hook them up with a stimulant drug. I'm going to repeat that. When children avoid the pain of abandonment in their life by attention distraction, by looking away, we hook them up with a stimulant drug. That's what we do. We don't show up for them. We don't notice that they need attention, they need some help, they need some support. Instead, they're looking away and we hook them up with a drug. Rather than going out of our way to show up and be there for them. Yes, these kids are very high maintenance. They absolutely need more attention from those who love them, and guess what? They're worth it. They are still growing and developing. Every day brings change in a child's development. Right now, they're just a teeny little sapling, but one day they're going to be a big oak tree. And it's really our job as the adults to help nurture them to that space. And what do we typically do? Hook them up with a stimulant. If you're thinking this sounds like the same as addictive behavior, you're absolutely right. Addiction is a similar distractive behavior that occurs when just looking away isn't enough anymore, and they need help to make the childhood trauma and loss go away. So addiction is kind of an outgrowth of the child who is in the most severe traumas and the most severe difficult life situations, and they can't get out of their body. They can't look away enough to make that pain go away. And so they hook up to a drug, they get their fix, they become an addict, and that's what they do to make that childhood trauma and loss go away. When looking away no longer is a good enough fix, they'll go for an addictive substance. Now, after the forgiveness statements, you move into some new behavior affirmations, such as, I give myself permission to let go of the energy of the trauma from age 2, and I am free to pay attention, and paying attention is good for me. Without this pattern, I can pay attention. I have enough attention without feeling afraid and threatened. Without this pattern, I am free to accept the hurt and loss in my life without giving up my loving connection. Without this pattern, I am free to accept the hurt and loss in my life without depending on distraction. The ADD, ADHD child needs positive, loving attention from the parents or strong adult authority in their life. Parents need to reinforce their love for each other and the child. Parents should add structure to their environment by sharing a family meal together. Environmental structure is necessary for the child's brain to develop structure. Some examples of this type of structure at home would be a sit-down breakfast daily, daily routines in the home, pick up toys with parents' help, get the mail, mow the lawn every Saturday night. We have pizza. These children thrive on routine and structure that comes with hands-on positive parenting attention. Now, an essential oil that helps with ADD is vetiver, Vetiver. The emotions vetiver addresses include apathetic, despondent, disconnected, scattered, split, stressed, ungrounded, the need to escape, and crisis. Use vetiver by deeply inhaling the smell as needed throughout the day, or at bedtime, rub a drop on the bottom of the feet. And this is the perfect way for a parent who needs to give more attention to this child to give that attention. To rub their feet at night, to have a deep, meaningful conversation while also applying a really beneficial oil. As you might imagine, I've learned a lot about ADD, ADHD, thanks to my second oldest son, Adam. At age 4, Adam was hit by a minivan in front of our home and thrown 40 feet on the pavement in front of our house. He had a closed head injury in his right frontal lobe. It's common for kids with these types of head injuries to have learning disabilities and ADHD. Adam was known as the only tornado in human captivity. We determined to give him more attention because it seemed pretty obvious he needed it. There were lots of homework days and tears and stubbornness, but in the end, Adam graduated as valedictorian of his high school class. He has a BS in nutrition from Pepperdine University and a BS in nursing from Marian University. As the only Cargioli child to ever need hospital care, Adam now works as an RN at St. Vincent's Hospital. That's what can happen to an ADHD kid who's given the attention he needs. Among a host of nutritional remedies, EPT was used regularly over the years with Adam to help him alleviate the pain of the trauma and the trauma of us not being there when he got airlifted. He got separated. Maybe you know a child who is looking away and having trouble paying attention. EPT is an amazing holistic therapy that can help a child grow and develop into someone who can fully trust and connect to their own life and those they love. This isn't your traditional type of psychological counseling. EPT is an alternative holistic therapy that helps the ADD child release the energy of trapped trauma and negative emotions from their body, mind, and spirit. It involves forgiveness, love, and a lot of positive attention. This results in a healthier, happier, more attentive child and adult. If you are looking for an alternative therapy that can help your child develop into a more loving, happy, and attentive person, get ready to try EPT. This is not where you thought you were going. It's so much better. As always, you can subscribe to this podcast, like us on Facebook, and go get your free training at eptworks.com. I'm Dr. Annette Cargioli, the Forgiveness Doctor. Until next time, listen, love, give. EPT works.